I wrote my first short story to introduce the channel. I've always said engineers can't write, so bear with me as you listen to The Cloud of Doubt. The Cloud of Doubt by Glynn, Amburgey. He only opened his left eye as he woke. That was about all that didn't seem to hurt. But as the light hit the back of his retina, that hurt too, so the eye quickly resumed its closed state. He wasn't sure he could move, but even if his body was able, he wasn't sure it was worth the effort. He lay still, waiting for his brain to wake up. Where am I? He thought. The brain was now more awake, but the information it was feeding him was a bit inconclusive, to say the least. He could try opening the eye again, but based on the lightning pain from the last time, he decided to let that wait. So for now, it was up to the brain to feed him the information he needed to ascertain his location and other pertinent details. I was over at Dave's working on the 69 the night before details began to come to his mind. We got it running and stopped in that little bar way out west to celebrate. What's that bar called? Oh, yeah, the Edge of the Earth. He was laying on his right side. The surface below him was hard and not smooth. His head was on something wadded up, maybe his jacket. There were ribs in the hard surface below him. He shifted his weight just slightly more to the right as that eye grabbed a quick blink. He was laying in the bed of his pickup. I wonder where my pickup is. His left hand moved slowly into his left jeans pocket. His fingers told him there was nothing in that pocket except an empty money clip. There had been about $80 in that clip when he headed over to Dave's. Must have been some good celebration. Wish I could remember if I had a good time. He recognized the feeling in the back of his head as the beginnings of a few-day hangover. He was not a big drinker. It would often be weeks between an adult beverage of any kind for him. The number of times he had been knocked down drunk in his life were only a handful. He didn't like being hungover, so he had never gotten the habit of drinking. So, what do we know, brain? It's daylight. I'm waking up in the bed of my pickup, and the last thing I remember is having a few drinks with Dave. My head is splitting like I had too much to drink, and I spent all my money. I have no idea where I might be and how I got here. And it's time to drain my bladder. I guess we need to muster up the strength to sit up and see where we are. He opened both eyes and rolled over on his back. The sky was cloudy. It looked like rain. There were tree branches overhanging off to the left and a bit behind the truck. he had rolled over onto something that was now pressing into his spine, adding to the pain in his body. He rolled back over onto his stomach and pushed up with his arms and rotated into a sitting position. It hurt, and he felt like he could throw up any minute. As his head came up over the side of the pickup, he saw the garage to his house off to his right and to the rear. He was in the driveway, parked at the back edge, just past the end-loaded garage. The effort to sit up rewarded him with the satisfaction that he was home and that the any minute to throw up was now. As the contents of his stomach came up, so did he. In a painful lurch, he threw his upper torso over the side of the pickup bed and hurled into the grass off the side of the driveway. The force of his stomach hitting the bed rail added to the launch velocity of the vomit. He was hanging half out of the bed, head spinning, body aching, trying to regain strength when he heard a car slow in front of the house. He strained his neck to the right, just in time to catch a glimpse of a sheriff's deputy's car stopping out in front. He threw himself back down into the bed of the truck. He gasped. That hurt. His head was now racing. He froze as he heard two car doors slam. Then there were footsteps coming up the driveway. He heard low voices, but couldn't make out any words. The footsteps were getting closer. Now what did I do? Was all he could think. He held his breath and listened as he stared at the back of the pickup tailgate. But instead of seeing the cops look down on him, the footsteps grew fainter. They're going to the front door. He slowly peeked over the tailgate. He saw the squad car parked at the end of the driveway, but no cops. He quickly jumped over the side of the truck, hurting all over. He crept around the front of the truck and headed toward the back of the house. The house had a walkout basement. He slipped down the embankment toward the rear patio. When he reached the door, it was locked. A search of his right pocket found the keys were not there. Jacket pocket, he thought. He didn't remember the slope back up to the driveway being so steep. He almost crawled back up towards his truck. As he approached, he realized there was significant front-end damage to the truck. He steadied himself on the passenger side fender as he saw scrapes and scratches running down most of that side. None of that was there yesterday. He reached into the truck bed for the jacket. As he picked it up, he saw a tear and blood on the left arm and the back of his favorite windbreaker. He looked down at his right shoulder. There was a big gash running up his arm and over the shoulder. Well, at least it's my blood, not somebody else's, he thought, with relief. There was movement to his left. He saw the garage door was opening. He staggered toward the brush area near the property line. A heave of effort took him into the bushes and down onto the ground out of sight, or at least he hoped. Under the truck, he saw feet heading toward it. There was a pair of bare feet that he recognized as Kathy's. With her were 2 large pairs of shoes, the cops, and a smaller pair of tennis shoes. "That's his truck. But where is he?" he heard Kathy say. "Brian, go see if he's down in the basement." The pair of tennis shoes ran off toward the patio. He heard a dinging sound. "My keys are in the ignition." "Good. Found them." "There's blood on the seat." Kathy's voice raised. "The door's locked, Mom." The tennis shoes returned. "He's got to be around here." Now her voice sounded frantic. "What am I doing?" his mind spun. "I'm hiding from the one person in my life that will stand behind me no matter what I've done. Idiot." "Hello?" He tried to shout, but it sounded barely above a whisper. He tried to get up, but went back to sleep instead. He slept. His brain woke before his eyes opened, and he was on his back quite comfortable, like in a bed. He inhaled deeply. He felt little pain, almost none. The hangover was gone. He listened. He only heard a slight beeping sound. He opened his eyes. He was in a hospital room. It was dimly lit. Kathy was sitting next to him, reading a book. She looked tired and unkempt. It was like she had been up all night, but she was still beautiful. Kathy glanced at him, saw him looking at her, and threw the book in the air. "Sweetie, you're awake!" She took his hand and jumped up. She touched his face and kissed him. Tears began to flow. His mouth was dry. "Water," was all he could say. She reached over to a table and got a cup with a straw. She put the straw in his mouth and he drank. "What happened? Am I in trouble? I'm sorry. I was drunk. I have no idea what I did." She hugged him. She was bawling like a baby now. "You wonderful man. You weren't drunk. Dave said you only had 2 beers. You don't remember anything?" He shook his head. He was confused. If he wasn't drunk, why can't he remember what happened? "You called me that night about 10 and told me that you and Dave were watching the ball game and it was going into extra innings and that you didn't know when you would be home." "Wait, what do you mean that night? Wasn't that last night?" "No, dear. You've been in a coma for 8 days. You got a concussion when you fell and hit your head." His look must have telegraphed his confusion. "On your way home late that night, you saw a house on fire. You rammed through the entry gate with your truck and pulled 5 people out of the fire. You threw a flower pot through a window and cut your arm climbing in. On your last trip out of the house, carrying 2 kids, you tripped. As you fell, you turned so that the kids would land on top of you and hit your head on the concrete walk. The doctors say that if we hadn't got you to the hospital when we did, you would be dead now." "So, I'm not in trouble? What about the cops at the house?" "I called them when you didn't come home. I was afraid you had an accident." "So, everything is okay?" "Now that you're back with me, it is." She smiled and kissed him again.